No YouTube over there, buddy. All right? Gonna download. We're downloading. I think we're live. What? Should be sending the, there you go. Because you can hear like the... Live. Okay. Woo. Hello. Wave to the camera.
Hi.
Okay, here we are. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Monday Night Discipleship here. This is a ministry of the Door Christian Fellowship in Colton, the beautiful hub of the Inland Empire. And welcome everybody out this wonderful night. We have quite the cast here with us. We have a couple of friends of the show here. We go to the wide angle view. All right. Everybody wave again. Wave again. All right. You're a little off on the side a little bit. Stick your head in. There you go. There you go. Okay, we got over here. Start from left to right. We got Mike, Evangelist Mike Gomez. He is here back in town. And we got in the center here, we have Pastor Anthony Garcia from our Riverside church. Say hi to everybody, Anthony. Yeah, he's shy. He's shy. And then we have also Pastor Tony Rodriguez. He is from the Fontana church, the pioneer work going on there. And I, of course, am Jason. I'm a guy with a computer. We got together here today. Just wanted to talk about some things. As you know, we just came off of Tucson conference. We just came off of Father's Day. We represent 4 different things going on here in the world, and so we're just going to real quick go person to person and kind of report off and sound off of what's been going on in your neck of the woods there. So first of all, Mike, you had some revivals take off on you.
Yes.
Last time we talked. So you want to just fill us in on what happened there?
Well, I was without a schedule for quite some time, and then I had something penciled in Bakersfield with Pastor Raul Rodriguez, and we kept on moving it back because the dates to open kept on changing. So finally we settled for what was it, the 6th, I think it was, Friday through Sunday weekend shot. And so we had some visiting churches come, some people got filled with the Holy Ghost, we were getting healed, and then Sunday evening he says, well, what are you doing tomorrow? And I says, well, I'm going home. He says, you think you can stay tomorrow? And I said, well, sure. And he said, well, let's not just do tomorrow, let's just go to Wednesday. I said, all right. So we went to Wednesday, and then another pastor, Jacob Salas, in the area, saw some of his folks impacted, and he, getting some momentum, and so he said, asked me to stick around from Thursday to Sunday, so it was 10 days in a row. And it was really a good feel. You could tell there was a real hunger in people's heart for not only hearing the Word of God, but fellowship and get into church again. So that was good to see. Their restrictions weren't quite like ours. They just basically checked our temperature and sanitizer, and basically nobody was wearing masks. I think a few visitors did. There was enough space in there for everybody to keep distance, but it was a very good scene. Very good scene. So.
Praise God. That's great. That's how every evangelist wants that to happen, right?
Yeah.
Wants your revival to take off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that you got to go to 2 churches instead of 1, so That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I had to buy clothes while I was there because I went there with 3 days of clothes, and I had to go shopping.
Oh man, you hate buying clothes, don't you?
Yeah.
Like I said. T-Rod, what's been going on in the Fontana front? You have been absent on Sunday mornings the past couple of times here. You guys got something going on?
Yeah, actually, we decided since the building's not going to open up, might as well still have church outside. Took the initiative, me, my wife, and my family. We just set up some chairs outside, took the guitar, set up a little music stand. And so I had my 3-point sermon ready. It's ready to go. And I noticed there's people walking by, and I couldn't see my screen. So I'm like, well, I can't see it. So I just started preaching what I knew. Jesus Christ died, Jesus resurrected, Jesus can save. And it was crazy because we actually had someone that was on the bike, and he stopped, and he sat there and listened to everything I had to say. And then so he lifts up his hand at the end and he prays. So ever since then, it's been weird because ever since we decided to we had no choice but to take the church outside the building, but ever since we started doing something outside, we always had at least one new visitor come through and just sit down and listen. And we always had someone new to pray for after each service. So we're on going to be on our 4th service, but God's really been helping us outside. I mean, it has a nice feeling, a nice new, refreshing feeling. To not only am I doing something online, but I get to do something now in person. And not only did that guy pray, but he's been coming back. I got to fellowship with him, follow up. He got to meet my kids. He enjoys being around the kids. He's a grandfather himself. So God's really been helping us ever since we decided we can't let this thing just shut us down. We got to do something. So ever since we've been there, God's been really blessing us with people and visitors, and with this gentleman named Luke.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah, that's where it starts. Starts with the spark, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So Pastor Garcia, you are in the beautiful city of Riverside, the COVID-enhanced Riverside. So how did the COVID onset, the lockdown, all that stuff affect your church specifically? How did you guys handle the challenge?
Well, it was, we're right in the middle of revival with our evangelist Steve Nicodemus. And it was actually, we had him Sunday and then Tuesday or Monday, and then actually Tuesday we had to shut down. And so that was, even having him coming in, and then we had like 5 churches come in on that Saturday, and we did concert, Colton and LA, a lot of, I forget all who else that came, Fontana I believe was there. But we had a good turnout, and revival started off awesome. We had people that new convert, never wore a tie before. You wore a tie Monday night, and then on Tuesday it was kind of like a it was just, oh wow. So it was a struggle to get, I was praying, I was like, okay, do I just go ahead and do the revival? I was just stepping out there, okay, let's do it, because I knew this thing was coming. And so on Tuesday, so it was just day by day it was changing. Day by day it was changing, and I'm just praying, okay. And so it came out, okay, we had to shut it down. And so, I sent him home. But after that Friday, so that was on a Tuesday, we shut it down. I sent him off, and then we didn't have service on the Wednesday, of course, and then the rest of the week. On that Saturday, my manager called me and said that one of the people that work in my building had COVID, and so they put me off work and put me in quarantine for 14 days because I had contact with him. So that was it. Was off to so from that point, shutting down the church, we had everyone. I think at that time the only one we were joining online was the Tucson congregation, Pastor Warner's church. We're joining with them there. And then Colton was, I believe after that, Colton was up and running. And so we're there watching Colton, joining Colton online. And then we're able to get ours up and running. I was able to go to the church and stream from there. And so, and then we started Zoom Bible studies, or actually WebEx Bible studies.
WebEx.
And then, and it went good. And it was, we hung out after the Bible study and fellowship, and it was good. But we're glad to come back into the church. We actually went back in on May 27th, soft open, and ever since then it's just gradually, getting back. And my wife and I were able to go to the Tucson conference this past week, and but the church at the church, Joseph ran it, and he put up the screen and the projector we actually got a big screen some months ago from Colton. One of their used screens they were getting rid of, so we were able to use that for the revival or for the conference. And we had actually testimonies last night, and even during the testimonies last night, it was just God's presence was in the place. And you see, our people were touched. I mean, God moved upon the hearts of our people in Riverside during the conference. Even though they weren't there, they were here, and they felt the presence of God. And they had made comments like it felt like we were there, you know. And so we're looking forward. We have a revival starting. We had one evangelist that was going to come in, but he had to cancel on us out. But I was able to secure another evangelist, Herman Brooks, which is going to be here this Sunday. And so we're going to be able to do that. And we're going to be first. We're going to be advertising on Facebook for the first time.
Oh, nice.
So I heard from, I think it was, I forget his last name, Curtis Burton, I think it was, Pastor Curtis. He was telling me some experience he was having with, some good experience he was having with Facebook, so we're going to try that. And plus we're going to do, go ahead and paper flyers, you know, and do an outreach, but we're going to see what happens with the Facebook
Cool.
advertisement, so.
Yeah, right on. People have been having some success with that. This definitely has been pushing people a little bit into a realm that they're not used to using, you know, especially
Right.
Older gentlemen who've never been on the internet, care less about it and stuff, and then here we are having to do stuff on the internet together, you know, do different things and be a little improvisational. So in Colton, it was pretty good. We've been doing our outdoor services on Sunday morning and Sunday night, just because the weather hadn't been that bad. Yesterday was probably the hottest service we ever had. So just setting up, pastor preaching. We had like a real cut down song service that some poor kid has to play the cajon instead of a drum set. It's pretty sad. This COVID thing is awful.
Yeah.
So there's that, and we've been checking people in. You know, I've been thrust because I'm in the medical field, so I'm qualified to. So I'm taking temperatures and stuff, and of course it's really easy to do. So other people have been taking over that. It's just trying to comply with, you know, CDC stuff. But really, we had this whole thing set up so people could, if they didn't want to, they could sit outside and watch it on the screens. But people are just, what the heck? And I just go inside. We never had to set anything up outside. And it's been kind of, it's just different. But the conference thing, that was weird. Because, you know, when you go to conference, especially in June, during the day and whatever and stuff, you're sitting in this padded chair, air conditioner is wafting over you, and listen to the person speak. And I really just felt like I was at conference anyway. Just sitting in the building, sitting in a padded chair, AC on and stuff, with my shorts and a t-shirt, and listening to people preach, and it just seemed like I was there. It felt like we were there and stuff, and so it was kind of a cool thing. But we're hoping to, we're going to be going probably indoors, I'm thinking, in July. Sunday morning, Sunday night, so that's what I think is happening. We went indoors on Sunday night so we could watch the World Evangelism video, and when that was done, people had their little place and stuff. You know, we had assigned seating and stuff, but people aren't liking the assigned seats.
Everyone's moving around, I see.
Yeah, when I go there, prayer in the morning, I took pictures. And everybody's names are there.
Everyone like remained like, okay, this is my assigned seat, and so the whole middle of the church was empty. Like there's people that didn't come, so the whole center aisle, right, and directly in the middle was empty. And my family's parked right underneath the speaker, like next to the video dungeon. Mm-hmm. So we get it live, man. We get the full.
Yeah, it was where I was loud.
Yeah, so it's like boom. And we're on the drum set too, but you know,
ooh, yeah, front row.
That's pretty good though. That's good for your heart. So that's where our little individual updates are. So we just came off of Father's Day. So what did your kids do for you, you guys? You're looking at Master of Global Population here. There's 3 or 4 of us and stuff, and so like Tony, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and they count as 4 additions to this man's family over here. So
you got 5.
He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess plus 4, it's a grand total 9.
I'll help keep an American population right.
That's right, man. Someone has to do it. And then Tony, you've got 2 wonderful kids, right? One was in the ministry for a while, right?
Yeah, and my grandbaby.
You got a grandbaby too?
Yeah.
So you're on 3. I got 4 wonderful children that took me out on a little daddy Father's Day with them. I know it took me out to eat. Got a big old fat hamburger.
I preached
Yeah.
in Indio. Or in Coachella.
Yes, that's the
Yeah,
calling you have, though.
Yeah,
brother.
so-
It's the
so
life
they-
you've chosen.
So they gave me
Coachella.
Man on the road.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, so well, actually, you know, I didn't realize this, but my wife's never been home alone in the house since March. She's like, I don't know. She cleaned the whole house and stuff. Just me and the kids were out. She's like, I haven't cleaned this house since March because this whole lockdown thing. Because they've been at home since then. I had no idea. You know, came home, it was all gloriously smelling. You could see the reflection in the wooden floor. You know, we didn't want to walk in. But yeah, so there's a lot of fun things going on. So we had. Did anyone catch that sermon by Frank King? Heroes in the Home Front.
I saw
That
a little
was
bit of it. I wasn't
this-
able to watch
It's
it.
a
Yeah.
recent one.
Well,
I
I
catch
heard
a little bit of it though. Frank King, like about heroes in the home front, and
Yeah.
that would be the fathers. Now your role is to die.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's what you do. Every time when you get married,
Yeah.
when you have your kids, your life becomes less about you and more about them and everything. So
I like how he led up to that. He said other things that what other ministries that he's done. He was thinking about it. Well, how am I qualified to preach? And he was like, I don't know anything. But then he goes, but I do know about how dying.
Mhm. Yeah,
Which,
yeah, he's a very practical
Yeah.
speaker.
right.
Very practical speaker. He came to Colton one time and talked about the difference between men and women.
Mm-hmm.
And he got up there and he got like a cutting board and a pillow. He's like, oh, both these things are made out of bamboo. You know, the pillow's made out of bamboo fiber, and this cutting board's also made out of bamboo. You know, it's like men and women made out of the same stuff. One's softer, one's harder, have different uses, so on and so forth. And I leaned over to my oldest son, I'm like, see, this is a children's church illustrated sermon right here. This is Children's Church 101 right there.
Illustration.
Yeah, those little object lessons. So now every time you see one, you're gonna be like, bamboo, same stuff. And everything. So,
And I think I believe that's the first time I heard him preach was at the Children's Church Conference in Prescott. Me and you went. We're
Yeah?
actually roomies.
really?
Yeah.
That was the first time, huh?
I think you got sick too. I think you had. I remember you
Something
came down with
wrong.
the cold. We went to go get our haircuts, and I remember we just
Oh,
were like
yeah, dude.
these guys walking in with their 6-shooters on their hip, and it was cool.
Yeah, we're like,
It was cool.
It's America.
Yeah. That was cool.
Me and Tony G are hopeless Californians, man. We're
They
like,
knew it.
What's that?
They knew it.
Yeah.
They smelt it.
That's funny. Oh yeah, but he's such a good speaker on this stuff. I remember stuff he said in the children's church when I was in Tucson.
Hmm.
I remember they were having children's church to drop all the kids off at this hotel. There was a conference room in the
Oh,
hotel,
yeah.
and then how the chairs set up and stuff. And so we'd all showed up and stuff, and he wanted to do a lesson on, like, you know, Luke 15, like the lost and found chapter, about the lady who finds a coin, right? So he totally rigged this up. He went in there before everybody else, and he taped a $10 bill to the bottom of one of the chairs. And then he's like, oh, you guys don't know this, but there's money strapped under one chair in this room. It's just everyone reach under a chair, see what it is, and sure enough, so when goes down, she grabs it, she gets up, starts jumping up and down. Yeah! Everyone's high-fiving her and cheering together. He's like, oh, see, that's what it's like in heaven. One person gives their life to Jesus. I remember that. That's all I remember. I was like,
How old were you?
huh?
How old were you?
I don't know. Must have been. I could have been anywhere 6 to 8,
Oh, wow.
9 years old, and it stuck.
Wow.
And the other thing I remember, this is kind of funny. I was kind of a class clown. I don't know if you guys can imagine that.
not you.
But some little girl threw up in the back of the old veterans building, because the children's church would be at the old building then. And they would move on to like Southgate or something. And so some little girl threw up, and so Mona, she cleaned the whole thing up. She was wafting it up and stuff. And so, but you know, when you clean a vomit, just with still kind of there in carpet.
Mhm.
So sometime during the night, I decided I was going to pull my shirt over my head and start jumping around like a monkey or something. I don't know what I was doing. But I remember acting like a fool, you know, being that one clown kid, jumping around the carpet, land on the carpet, and then I land in a wet spot. land in the wet spot, and it's just like, woo! You see all those digestive juices on my elbows.
Yeah. I can see you not forgetting something like that.
Oh man.
So children's church has an impact on you. Okay? Fatherhood stuff. So, do you have any just scriptures written down, Tony G? We can all shoot off of. You want to just you have a scripture there? You don't have to do the whole thing. Just,
Yeah, I was just looking at 1 Corinthians 4. Speaking of, yeah, let me get there. Okay, 1 Corinthians 4, 14 to 21. Says, I do not write these things to shame you, but as my beloved children, I warn you. For though you might have 10,000 instructors in Christ, yet you do not have many fathers. For in Christ Jesus I have begotten you through the gospel. Therefore I urge you, imitate me. For this reason I have sent Timothy to you, who is my beloved and faithful son in the Lord, who will remind you of my ways in Christ, as I teach everywhere in every church. Now some are puffed up, as though I was not coming to you, but I will come to you shortly, if the Lord wills, and I will know not the word of those who are puffed up, but the power. For the kingdom of God is not in word, but in power. What do you want? Shall I come to you with a rod, or in love and a spirit of gentleness?
Mm. Of course, talking about the missing element, right? We have in the church. We just have like a teacher relationship with our pastor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the idea I was thinking was spiritual father. And if I can, real quick, just here's an excerpt. This is from the President Trump's roundtable meeting on justice disparities in America. Because of the riots, and he had military, so he had law and religious leaders there. And one, I don't remember if he was a pastor, but I know he visits churches. He has an organization, his name is Jack Brewer. And he just says, thank you, Mr. President. I think right now, like any other time in our nation's history, we need God. I am praying the Holy Spirit to put words in my mouth right now and I want a nation to hear me. We need the fear of God. Mr. President, you're not the only, you're the only Republican I've ever voted for. And I'm not just saying that to make you feel good. Honestly, that's not my goal. I'm saying that because you stood up for the Word of God. And he goes on to say, as believers and as the church, we need to pray for our president and have his back. When you raise that Bible in front of the church, those folks burn. I want to tell you this is a spiritual warfare. And the president says, yes, you're right. And he says, we cannot fight this battle with flesh and blood. We cannot fight this battle with politics. But I tell you what, Mr. President, when I walk into my prisons, I'm blessed. I teach in prisons across our nation, men who are broken, the most broken men in our country. And when I walk into my class and I say, guys, raise your hand if you've gotten a sentence reduced from the First Step Act, and every single hand will raise up. And he said, that's because of you, Mr. President, and that's because of policy. You're brave enough to go against what everyone else has said about you. Now I'm calling you on you to do more, but then it skips down and says, we have a real issue in our country, and let's not get our eyes off the enemy. The root of it is fatherlessness. Our kids don't have fathers. Attorney A.G. Barr had mentioned this, and he said, we talk about education. Well, 71% of kids that drop out of high school don't have a father in the house. We talk about criminal justice reform. You're 5 times more likely to go to prison or have a run-in with the police department if you don't have a father in the house. We talk about health care. You're 4 times more likely to live in poverty if you don't have a father in the house. And if you're in poverty, you're more likely to get sick. We don't have to keep looking for the problem. We see it. Now it's time for Americans of all colors. I'm calling on my brothers and sisters. I'm calling on my white brothers and sisters. I'm calling on my Spanish brothers and sisters. Get out of your bubble. Go into the communities that are unserved, and let's do what Jesus told us to do. We can bridge the gap of fatherlessness. All we got to do is get out of the bubble, go bridge the gap with these kids, teach them what you teach your kids. Let's bridge the gap through love and through Christ. And I know it's kind of lengthy, but this is the idea of spiritual fatherhood. Spiritual fatherhood, because some people come against that, like that's not biblical. But as we read in the text right here, how Paul is describing himself, and this is not to say that you're calling him like a priest or a father, and like this is a title of authority, of some kind of position to control, have some kind of control over your life. But it is a fatherly love, and just like this gentleman Jack Brewer had said, teach, go out to these communities and teach them what you would teach your kids. And so a pastor, or a spiritual father, it's that genuine love for the spirit, genuine care, genuine concern for your soul. And I'll stop there before I keep going on.
That spirit, it's that genuine concern for people. I think people feel this. I know that when I was in the fire station at 47, we had a lot of reserves and not volunteers, but explorers and stuff. They're young men, all under 20, come to the station, and everyone's just in butt kicking mode, all day long. If you've been around kind of just that kind of, you're kind of like Mike, maybe even the construction group people, everyone's in butt kicking mode, So, but when you go, they sense that. So I wasn't raised around it. I don't have what you call like the bee house brainwashing. I didn't grow up in a bee engine and, slave labor basically. So I wasn't used to the culture, but when these young guys would come in there, I would show them what I knew, which was very limited. They started asking me questions about medic school and their future, and I showed, like I said, a genuine interest in their future. Started handing out advice, and when I remember after a while, God kind of brought these people to me all the time. I felt like the reason I was there was for some of these 20-somethings that are just on this bridge where they don't know exactly what they're going to do. I could go fire, I could do this. Should I just, I'm not all that happy here. Should I stay in the fire department? What should I do? And I was just there like to just give them advice and stuff. But people can sense that they have a genuine care for life. So when you have your kids, they can tell when you're into your job as a father and when you're not. They can tell when you're busy. She wasn't a father, but this obviously she's a woman. But she was a girl who was really smart, really assertive, really kind of like your feminist ideal, I guess you would say, just a smart woman. She came up in the emergency medical field, and she's just doing her thing. And she goes from EMT to paramedic, and then she's doing the FTO thing. Then she's going off. She's at the college now. She's in charge of all the interns that are going out there to become paramedics, and she's working for RCC, I believe. Her name was Eva, I don't know. But she's in charge of all the paramedic students in Riverside County. It's a crazy job. She has like a son, right? And so she gets to sit down with her kid, and she's loving this guy. She loves him to death and stuff. And she goes, "So who's the most important person in my life?" And he goes, "Your students, right?" Yes, and she's like, inside. She goes, "No, you are." But then she started thinking. And the reason I know the story is because like 3 or 4 years later, took someone to Loma Linda University, and she's sitting there in scrubs in front of a computer checking people in, like ER secretary, unit secretary. So she's making less money. She's not the powerful, woman power person, she's not like she doesn't have all her hardcore makeup on anymore. She's not all flashy. I barely recognized her. And I said, "What happened to her?" She told me the story. She's like, "Oh, I had to spend more time with my kid because he could sense what my priorities were, that genuine care." And so she wanted to radiate that. Kids have like a radar. They got this thing that just they can pick up what mom and dad are really saying. Really the context behind everything. So that's what I think when you said that, it really triggered my thinking there. You got that genuine care. So when you come to like one of our churches, you would hope that the pastor has a genuine care for your spiritual condition.
And that was a comment that was made, one of the testimonies last night. I believe it was Sister Rosa that had said that something that flows through, down from Pastor Mitchell, Pastor Warner, leaders that flows through a lot of the pastors in our fellowship, that genuineness, that love, that father, that kind of genuineness for your soul,
Yeah.
your well-being. Over the I don't know, last 20 some years, I can recall two individuals that were they didn't make it. They ended up leaving the church, because they were like, they had this attitude like, who do you think I am? Like, for you telling her, I'm not a kid. I'm a grown man. And like no one could speak, into your life. One person, maybe you guys might know who said this, but they said like, okay, it's the transition, like when as a kid you're growing up, your father is there, you're under your parents' roof, your father's there, and at age 18 you're out of the house. Okay, that's the end of your training for your human existence, and you're out into the world. But then he said no, it should be where you the pastor or the church takes over where the parent left off, or where the father left off after he leaves, and where the father, almost like kind of like what Pastor Warner was saying with Pastor Mitchell, a seamless transition, and having so you never outgrow a father. You never outgrow that, like in this context we're talking about spiritual father. It's necessary to have someone like that in your life. If you want to grow and mature, not that you're an older man, you have gray hair, okay, you're mature, but how about you spiritually? Are you spiritually mature? And can your spiritual father help you to bring you to spiritual maturity?
Right. Always a need, constant. I still feel like a little kid sometimes around Pastor, and I talk to him about stuff and ask him advice and stuff. Like I'm standing outside my dad's door, wait for him to be done with whatever he's doing, so we can talk to him, sometimes. But I hit a point. Maybe you guys could testify to this too. Maybe when I was about 30, 31 or something, I hit this point where I was like, you know what? I'm the daddy now. I'm the guy that I'm going to be the go-to guy, or I'm the go-to guy now. It was when I was out, pioneering in Pomona, or about to go pioneer. I remember I was considering all this, and I'm going to be the guy that they come to for things. I'm going to be the one that they seeking counsel for, looking. Some people are looking for like approval from a father figure type person and stuff. It just kind of all goes together. It's the whole maturity thing. But I kind of had that revelation one day. I don't know about you guys, just like, well, I'm the dad now, the buck stops here. Can't I just run home? I can't blame my dad for his shortcomings anymore for what I'm doing. I'm the daddy now. I got my own kids, got my own brood. So I've always kind of since then been like, well, kind of owning the whole fatherhood thing, and taking it's changed me. Thinking of things like that. Just I don't know if you've had an experience like that where you're just like, I guess I can't go. I have to make all the decisions. But that's kind of for me what it was, kind of a coming of age thing. And in my early 30s, someone's going, okay, well, what if someone comes to me with the same kind of problems that I've come to pastor with, marriage issues, work issues and stuff. People come to me with financial questions and different things, and I sure hope that when I was preaching and that people could tell that I cared about them, or people could sense that concern for their lives. But to me, that's what fatherhood has been like a goal for me. When I got saved, I had grown up in church and I had tried the world and stuff, but I had made it in my mind that I wanted to be the best husband I could be and the best father I could be. And so I was like, the only place I can do that is if I get my butt in church and stick it out, and just learn from the best. These men that I've seen with marriages and kids and stuff. And so it's kind of been a whole Jason Duran growing up kind of thing for me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the past 25 years. And I still need guidance.
Mm-hmm.
I still need that exampleship. I still need to be reminded, this is what your purpose is, we should do. So there's people who are, let me see, we got some folks here in our stream here. Some young guys, some parents and stuff. So let's just go around the board here, starting with Mike. What kind of advice would you give to a new father, someone about to become a father?
Well,
Break off a chunk of your many years experience.
My many years of experience. Well, I come from a whole different background. I never had a father, so everything came off for me. You basically see an example in my spiritual father, my pastor, and other men, just gleaning for the Word of God, listening to the sermons, getting the mind of God. I can go back 2 years ago and, you know, never having nobody tell me no, you know, or to correct me, and it kind of led me into a big path of destruction. And so, being a father of 5 girls has really helped me, because they're, you know, very unique, and they're, you know, each one of them is unique, but then girls are a little different from boys. Boys have the more rambunctious, you know, just go adventure out and fall down, eat dirt, eat worms, things like that. But girls, I had to learn how to be more sensitive to their feelings, something that I never really had, as far as, you know. And so as a father, that really helped me to adjust my handling not only of my daughters, but it helped me when I was pastoring to take in and listen to what they're saying before I start giving advice, you know, because, you know, boys, you can pretty much say, well, just do this, 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 because boys will handle, just do this, this, and this, yeah, but girls, they want to understand why, they want to know, you know, how I feel about certain situations, and so I had to kind of have to learn how to, you know, emote almost, you know, in a certain degree, as a father, to kind of get down to where they're at, and, you know, actually look at them and listen to them and engage them. So those are things that I had to learn, because I never had that. So I had to learn how to make my child feel like they were important, that, you know, that everything else could come to a standstill, you know, my pastoring, pioneer, whatever I was doing, that I put them in a position where they could come to me anytime, you know. And so I think they still, as far as I know, they still feel that way, that they can interrupt me and talk to me and ask me questions. But it's something that I had to basically establish as a young father, and now I look at it now, I would tell younger fathers, hey, you need to learn how to engage your children, see where they're at, listen to what they're saying. You know, that way you can, you know, there's a lot to say about listening, you know, because we as men, we like to just tell people what to do. Okay, do this, and you're good. Come back to me in a week. You know, but if you actually listen to what they're saying, then you can kind of like, oh, now I know what they're feeling. I know why they're asking this question. I know why they're going through this particular whatever it might be, and I can kind of help them navigate through things, you know, rather than give them a, you know, 1, 2, 3, do this, and that. And so that would be one thing I would suggest as far as learning how to listen and engage with your child. And another thing would be that you stand with your wife in discipline. You know, like I would there'd be a time when I would come home, I didn't know what was going on. My wife's been with the kids all day, so I don't know, and she would tell me. The kids give me a hard time, they need this thing. So I just tell them, go get the spoon. I don't want to hear no excuses, and I would simply spank them without even knowing. Just to affirm their mother's role in the house, her authority as a parent. And basically, you know, didn't ask, and then later on, I began to question what was going on. And I'd explain to them, okay, this is why the spanking, this is why the discipline came, because, you know, you disobeyed, whatever the case might be, and explain to them all that. But I was backing it so that my kids could see, hey, you know, mom says something, dad's going to back it up. Okay, so which really set the tone in my house, because you know, they didn't want to cross those lines, because all my wife would say, they did this. I didn't have to ask why. And you know, the third thing was the consistency. You know, you have to be consistent. You know, you can't, you know, you can't be lazy as a father as far as teaching and admonishing and correcting, loving. You have to be consistent and fair. Those things all take work, you know, and especially if you've never had an example, you know what I mean? And so you have to really learn that. You know, one of the things I really learned how to do is read about fathers, being a father, being a husband. All those things really helped me to, you know, kind of work through it as I was going through it. So, you know, so hopefully some young guys out there will realize that, you know.
Yeah, that's good advice. Anthony?
What was the question? Oh, advice to
New fathers or people?
Well, kind of like what, along lines with like what I was saying, as far as, you know, a spiritual father or a spiritual parent. Like one of the comments that Frank King, or else you can listen to sermons from Frank King. Frank King, huh?
That's you.
Yeah, but you can listen to sermons from Frank King. He did make a comment, and he said, "Amen, it's all God." So you can, what did he say? There was a man that didn't have a father, and when he was getting to know him, he didn't know this man very well, I guess, at the beginning. So he was finding out about him. He knew he was a great father, and he was like, "You're great. You know, how did you learn this? Where'd you get this from?" Because he didn't have his father in his life, and so he said from people in the church, you know, godly men, his pastor, and other, you know, men in the church. That's how with me as well. I mean, I didn't, you know, to be a pastor, to be a father and a husband, you know, I didn't know. I was making mistakes over and over again, but I, you know, would listen, watch, you know, men and how they treated their wives, how they, and I would ask, you know, not those on the brink of maybe divorce themselves or something, you know, but, you know, brothers, there's, so wherever you're at, whatever church you're in, you know, where I believe there's, you know, your pastor is a good source to watch him, how he treats his wife, how he treats his kids, how he's, you know, and to watch other leaders in the church, other, you know, on even as you develop relationships with other churches on outreach, maybe you guys spend a lot of time with even those godly men, those godly pastors, watching them, how they raise their kids and things like that. And of course, and like Mike said, it's the same, reading books and so, but there's just a wealth of right there of a treasure trove of insight and wisdom and from your pastors and from the people, the men in the church.
Like a treasure trove of exampleship.
Yeah,
Different people.
like you said with the consistency, and Pastor Warner touched on that too with Pastor Mitchell. The consistency, he saw the example, and that's exactly what Paul is saying here. It was a consistency that he had. Do as I do, as I go everywhere I go, every church imitate me, because he was imitating Christ, which is Jesus was imitating all the Jesus' words is not of my own, it's of my Father, and Jesus opened that up to imitate his Father. He opened that connection up to us. There was one theologian, he said something about I think it was Judean literature text and a library of text that he said in this Jewish library that they never mentioned the word Abba. And Jesus is the one that introduces that, and he tells us, pray, you know, our Father who art in heaven. And so he's my Father, and he made that he's the mediator between God and man. And so he said, okay, he is your Father now. He is your Father also. He reconciles us unto God. And so we're imitating just down, you know, imitating Christ, imitating your pastor is imitating Christ. He imitated his pastor. That what was instilled in him and his pastor, and so on and so forth. And it can do the same for you. You know, in your church, where you're at, you can learn right there. You know, you have to go on YouTube and say, how do you be a father? How to be a father?
Mark Hanby's book is pretty good.
Mark Hanby?
Yeah. You have not many fathers.
I think I've read that.
Yeah.
That's somewhere in my library.
Right.
Tony?
It's worth a read.
Well,
Your younger father?
yeah, so I don't want to get too close to this guy.
Social distance.
Yeah, so I kind of have the same background as Pastor Mike. I mean, I didn't really, there was a man in the house, but no one really to say, no, don't do that, or no, that's not right. It's either, if you're going to do it in front of us so we can kind of make sure everything's going to be okay. So there was really no one to direct us, give us direction, tell us no, or, show us what it was to grow up. So then getting saved, being discipled, becoming a young man, getting married at 21, Katrina being 18, then we have our first kid when she's 19 and I'm 22. So I'm like, whoa, like, this is going to be crazy. But believe it or not, this gentleman right here, Pastor Mike, was a huge example in my life when it came to that. Because him having 5 daughters and kids, he knew exactly what needed to happen, pastoring, doing things. So I was able to look at his life and ask questions, look at what's working. But then, reading books, and I might go against the grain on this, okay? But some of those books, you can read all the books you want, but until you have a kid, it doesn't really help. Some books don't even help. You can have the best book, and you're like, this kid did what? They don't really. Some books will help, and some books are like, oh, this guy probably never even had a kid. But one thing I did learn is that all kids are going to be different. I cannot handle my oldest son Jonah as I handle my youngest son Jace. They're different, and it comes back to God created us all to be different. We're all created in His image, but each and every one of us have a different personality. And I remember Frank King telling me and my wife Katrina, your kid's this way because God created them this way. You can't force that out. You got to find a way to redirect it into something godly. So we found out, okay, what works for this kid? I can't spank this kid 10 times and spank this kid 10 times because it might not have the same effect. You got to learn how to discipline your kids. Spanking works in all the kids, but you got to have their own personalized discipline for each and every one of them. So each kid's going to be different. You can't handle each kid the same. And another thing is you got to learn how to forgive the kids. You can't say, you did this. Why do you keep doing this? You got to look at your relationship, how you are with God. God forgives us. He doesn't bring it back up. So when I'm disciplining my kid, I can't come back and say, why did you keep doing that? You keep doing the same thing over and over. You got to kind of, okay, you did this. Let's focus on this now. And that's one thing I learned as the kids kept coming along as I get older. You got to learn how your relationship is with God. How does God look at you as a kid? How does God discipline us? He doesn't bring up our past. He treats each and every one of us differently. And so seeing that, I'm able to help my kids grow, treat them, each and every one of them differently, love them differently, but at the same time, love them the same. And you learn how to listen. My daughter we could be doing one thing, and I'm okay, I can repeat her, and there's one time she grabbed me by the cheek, she said, Dad, you're not listening to me, look at me. I'm like, you're only like 2.
5 of them, bro.
Yeah.
I got 5 of them.
And like you said, it's like that radar. They can pick up when you're really giving them the time. And that helps me so much too, because with this gentleman Luke that's coming to church, I take him out to lunch and he's like, no one's ever sat with me and listened to me. No one's ever really asked me questions or cared to even know how I was doing. Well, all that comes because you're learning from your own children how to love someone that's not like you, someone that's always being disobedient. But as far as kids, I learned just to treat them all, love them exactly the same, not to bring up their past, but also treat them all differently because they're all individuals. But, no kid's ever going to be the same as the next. But yet you got to love them all the same.
All right, so we're basically learn to listen, back your life up, treasure trove of exampleship, tap into it, right? Tony, don't read books.
Honestly though, have you ever read a book and you're like,
No, I know exactly what.
that didn't help once. Some of them are great, some of them, but I'm like, that didn't help one
Eat the meat,
bit.
spit out the bones.
Yeah, my wife would be like, I read this book and they said the minute you say something, they should say yes, ma'am, and go do it. I
Yeah.
said, hey, that only happens in Christian books.
Yeah.
So it's like, but you
What
can't.
world they live
You
in?
got to
Not
earn
everything
that.
is going to be according to books because they're all going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
So you read books, but man, don't expect it to be picture perfect.
Yeah, so that's our fatherhood stuff. So we're going to transition a little bit here. The Tucson Bible Conference.
Yeah.
We are just fresh off of this. Something we've done every year. Was it, were you, Mike, saying it's like the first one you couldn't go to in like really
decades.
decades?
Yeah.
I think I missed a couple being in the fire service, and then I missed 1997 when I was in medic school in my internship, also at a fire station. Maybe there's something to look at there, huh? So that's the last time I missed it. I've always, my whole life has revolved around being burnt out at work because I never take vacation because I'm saving it up for 2 weeks out of my
That's right.
life.
Conference.
And now boot camp. So, you know, and this year I didn't have to do that. So I got some bake time, you know, saved up for next year. Hopefully, take some days off just for mental health, I guess. But conference has always been a big deal. It's kind of like when you go and you touch bases, you get refreshed and stuff. We're all in ministry. We've been in ministry. When you're a pastor, a conference is a lot different than when you're a disciple, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're a disciple, you're going over there, you're like, I can't wait to see everybody. I'm going to see this person. I'm going to look to that person. I'm going to hang out with that guy. I'm going to see this. And all this preaching and all that stuff. When you're a pastor, it's a little different, right? You go up and give those reports.
They lie.
So they lie. That guy's lying. Or I could discourage, yeah, sure. 90 people got saved, right? Okay, sure. So it's kind of like it hits us in our competitive bone, you know. We're just kind of like, what's wrong with my people then? Of course, there's always that one sermon that hits you between the eyes, right? So, at least for me, there's always like one, maybe two sermons that's just like, you know, and it's what I needed to hear, it's how I needed to hear it, sometimes from the person you least expect it. So, just based on this conference, we all heard all the sermons, right? There's one thing that really sticks out to you. Start with you, Tony.
Marty
Carnegie.
Carnegie's sermon on the shift, because I'm still a new pastor, so everything's still fresh from what I learned in my mother church, what I learned from the men. And when, well, at least for me, when I first started pioneering, even now, until God kind of, you know, shifted me, you get stuck in your ways. You know, oh, I gotta have this, I gotta have that, I can't do it without that. It has to be perfect. But in the end, pioneering is never going to be perfect. You gotta really trust in God and do whatever God has you to do. Like, so for example, when we went outside, we could have waited all, you know, until our building opened up. But nothing would have happened until God says, you know, you got to do something. You can't just stay back and do nothing. So, I mean, just being able to shift and go where God wants you to go. I can't just stay back and be religious and hope something happens. So I think Marty Carnegie is the one that struck me really hard, because I can't just rely on the things that I know to do, are the fellowship things. I got to trust in God and go wherever the Holy Spirit tells me to go.
Right on. The shift. It's like the big story. Isn't he the one? He finally said it in conference. Everything we've been making fun of, we now have to do, we have to use and stuff. So just an adjustment, right?
Yeah.
Shifting the seat. You're going the same direction. You just got to adjust your posture. Adjust what you're doing a little different. So, okay. Pastor Garcia.
I would say that was really one of them. Also, it was that one. And so, let me see, what was my thoughts on that? I just drew a blank. Right, yeah, definitely. So it was a lot like what you're saying. I really resonated with me with that, because I remember. I just know that, I mean, it was an awesome sermon. I remember I didn't want it. It was I don't know, something went through my mind. I didn't want it to end. I don't know if it was just it was the presence of God, and because it was an awesome sermon. Mm-hmm. But at that moment, that went through my thought. I just want to stay here for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just really. It was just really powerful. I guess I'll go back to 1982. Okay, I got saved. Yeah, when originally my dad got saved. I got saved. We went church in the 80s. Okay, and so it was actually a small church here in Colton, and they were street preaching, and I remember pastor actually made a comment saying like, yeah, I remember that church because they were the only other ones out there doing what we were doing, like as far as taking it outside the four walls of the church, evangelizing on the streets and things. And they used to cruise over on East Street or Quick Corner, that they would be out there as well. And I remember my brother Chris, he would go out there and he would go. I was still a bit young, and they said it got kind of rowdy and stuff, and so they didn't want me to go. But I remember that time anyway. In this fellowship, it kind of came to a fork in the road. And it was like, okay, you're going to keep doing what you're doing and keep this momentum. You're having revival, or you're going to go the way of Bible college and TBN, TV evangelism. Mm-hmm. And so they went in the way, kind of like with Pastor Mitchell. He was sending people to Bible college, and it wasn't working out. And so anyway, this fellowship, they went in the way of the Bible college and TV evangelism, and it destroyed it. So kind of even before all that, so ever since then, kind of always had that bad taste in your mouth about that, and so the shift and the transitioning when it came time, when the whole COVID hit, and I'm over here, I'm thinking this on the back of my mind, all this stuff, and I'm like, man, I never desired it at all whatsoever to have a YouTube channel, to do, any of that. So, but God really, God prevailed. And so it was, but that sermon it really hit home. And Pastor Warner's sermon is ode to his pastor, and then Courtney Lowe was an awesome sermon as well. I mean, they're all really good sermons. And I think
it was kind of
Pastor Fred.
Ruby. That was good. Yeah, but you might.
What's that?
Yeah. What was the in between the eyes kind of sermon for you?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, there was
I didn't hear
actually
that part.
3 sermons that I really.
Well, actually, I had 4, and
I had more than one.
I had 3 sermons that really resonated. Being a long-term conference goer, I guess. And one was Richard Ruby's sermon, "Good Man." That really resonated because kind of made you sit back and look at not only long-term friendship, but your own people that influence you as far as your ministry, with my pastor, et cetera, et cetera. Just that was a very good sermon. I said, that's what our world needs is good men. So that was one that really resonated. And then Fred Ruby's sermon on courage already had some things going through my mind, and so that just what he said, that whole thing on courage being one of the most according to Paul Johnson, one of those valued traits in a leader, and so I ended up doing a YouTube on that whole, in my own perspective anyways. But then the ultimate sermon for me was Pastor Warner's Friday night sermon. That's the one that really just kind of was the icing on the cake as far as it encapsulated a lot of things from the week, the good man, the different things, but that one, having watched, the ministry, going to conference both Prescott and Tucson, and just that really resonated. That was a very powerful sermon, just not as a fellowship, but down into the local level, ode to my pastor. So that really was a wonderful thing. And then Marty's offering that he took I like that too, because it was just, very eye-opening as far as the financial support of Martin Luther King came from some church-going ladies. I said, that was a pretty powerful little truth right there,
Yeah, it was the underground.
The money from nowhere, So those were the 3 things that really stood out for me.
That's good. It's good. Yeah, so we had Pastor Warner's initial sermon, like "Don't Forget Who You Are," right? That to me, you guys remember Pastor Mitchell? He had a classic sermon they printed out. It's called "God's Divine Blueprint" or something like that. The same kind of thing. You're a citizen of heaven. Don't forget who you are. If you're going to go into a certain thing that's stressful, like a young man's going to he's going to start dating or courting his future wife, you're going to go into ministry or something, you're going to get involved in these things, don't forget who you are. We're just, passing through. Gosh, I heard this morning again, he had some powerful quote about if you aim for heaven, earth is included. But if you aim for earth,
Yeah.
you get neither.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. He's like, oh, why not, talk about heaven and stuff. So that was a pretty good, startup, Yeah, we serve the God of miracles. We're children of God. Don't forget you that. So, I know Courtney Lowe. His sermon was like, I was listening to him like, yeah, he's on. Wait for it. We need to wait on God, God's timing, different things. Don't get discouraged. Don't turn. It just seems like me that would have been a more hardcore sermon if the crowd was there, pumping it up. I haven't had to do it. You guys have done it, preaching to a camera, to an empty room. It's got to be hard, to get pumped up, because that's, to me, that's kind of the thing. And you feel that reverberation off the crowd, it comes back at you, or you feel them, the resistance or whatever. So
he said one good thing though, a good point. I remember when he said it, is that when God offers you something, He has an opportunity for you. The devil will always be there to try to offer you something that you think might be better. Whether it's a young man trying to go into ministry, a career might pop up, schooling might pop up. When you're dating, a young lady, when I get married, another old lady from the past might pop up. So when God's presenting an opportunity to you, or some kind of thing to give you that you've been waiting on, something that you're waiting on, the devil's always going to try to give something that you think might be better, so you can kind of snag it instead of waiting on God. And I thought that that was powerful, because how many times do we know young men or young ladies that don't want to wait for something, that they just snag for whatever's available at the first shot. They miss out on destiny and opportunity that God had for them, whether a husband, whether a pioneer, whatever it could have been, but they're just so fast to kind of grab, okay, that looks good, I want that thing. But I was like, man, that is good. There's always going to be opportunities that the devil's going to give you, but can you wait for that divine opportunity that God has for you?
right, wait for it. What about Paul Stevens?
Great Commission.
The what?
The Great
The
Commission.
commission.
He said something. I forgot what he said on that one.
I like what he said on Friday night. California being the harvest field.
Oh, the word
Yes. Right.
Yes, sir.
That's God.
Oh, his word he gave to one of 3 churches coming our way, huh?
Yeah.
The Inglewood. I forgot that young man's name.
Inglewood, Victorville, and a change over in Gardena now.
Gardena.
Yeah.
And then Bruce Callahan, going to Australia.
He's going back to Australia. I forget that's where he's from.
Right.
So, but yeah, so Paul Stevens, big booming voice. I've heard the sermon 3 times. I can't remember anything from it. I can't think of anything from it.
You already heard it 3 times?
Yeah, I tried listening to it 3 times.
Yeah, I usually wait for a week and then I start the cycle all
Yeah,
over
because I was
again.
trying to remember some tidbit, from thing. See, there's that Gary Rodney guy talking about
That
disciples.
was a good one. Personalizing discipleship.
Right. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, so what do your disciples look like? It's like they're supposed to look like Jesus, not just you. It's kind of going along some of the lines you were talking about there, Tony. But
And he actually quoted that in Galatians 4:19, I believe it was. He includes that in our text that we read. He didn't say the ending part of it, which was, he said, imitate me. But in Galatians, he says, imitate me as I imitate Christ. And he says that. But he reiterates a lot of this to a lot of, his writings.
yeah, that's a good discipleship sermon.
He can save a lot of, listening to it, he can save a lot of young pastors like me a lot of mistakes, because a lot of times we think we got to make someone into who we are. I like this, I like that, so I'm going to preach that over the pulpit, and I'm going to include God in it because I want you to be like me, or I want you to stop doing the things I don't want you to stop doing. Or, I don't like the way you dress, I'm going to preach that, and I'm going to mix Jesus in there just to kind of fix you the way I want you to be. Instead of letting God work in them and you let them customize discipleship to who they are. Because they can reach people I probably could never reach. But mistakes I probably would have made down the road to try to fix people instead of letting Jesus disciple them.
Right. This is good. No, probably the one do you remember Richard Ruby's Good Man sermon, right?
Yeah.
Good Man. He preached this
That was awesome.
in his regular congregation. It was a congregational sermon he delivered a few weeks back. But he did switch it up here for the Wednesday night service. He included more stuff about, China and stuff from the world evangelism and different things going on there. Giving him more of an expanded scope. Because he mentioned that part where he was talking about everyone's had, the idea behind the sermon is you need good men in your life. Bad men get all the attention and all the praise and all the, all the press. So when God has given you a good man in your life, and so one of these is your pastor, the people in the church, so on and so forth. So he did say that when he was in China, he just got excited about planting churches in China. He told the people over there, the young Chinese men, this door's open right now, and someday this door could close.
Wow.
So at that point it's going to be up to you. You're going to have to evangelize this country. You're going to have to disciple people. You're going to have to plant your own churches so far. And he's like, what did we're the good men for their lives. What do we leave them?
Mm-hmm.
Do we leave them equipment? Church service structure, or we leave them there. Hopefully we deposited something into their life that's going to help them go ahead and be successful in their country. So that to me was a pretty impactful. That I heard already, but I understand God brings a good man in your life.
Mm-hmm.
A good man. So that was a very good sermon. Ayuba Sharif.
Running with the wind.
Yeah, running with the wind.
Is that the one that we had this? It was hard for me to understand that one.
Yeah, it kind of is really heavy.
Yeah, it was just because what we were saying, the echo.
Sierra Leone accent.
Difficult because the echo. But,
And they didn't have like the lapel or whatever. That's how they do their thing, I guess. But
I remember the song coming to my mind. Against the wind, running against the wind. Don't run again.
I think I know what I'm talking about. I'm thinking the wrong song. Okay, I get it.
I'm still thinking about the Richard Ruby sermon. Just real quick though before we go.
Okay.
Just valuing the things that are given to you. I think me being as a young man, still young in the fellowship, learning things, I think sometimes we don't have enough value for what's given to us. The foundation of what we have to preach with, the gospel, the testimonies that are given from the older men in the church, where you can go all the way to Pastor Mitchell, Pastor Warner, then you got pastors, then you got the older men in the church. We don't value the wisdom, the things that they can offer. We just kind of see it as, I'll take it when I need it, I'll get it. But there's so much value in that. There's so many things decisions they made or mistakes they made, and they can share that wisdom with us as disciples, as young people, or whatever the case might be. But that inheritance, it's so valuable. You can't really put a price on it. You go anywhere else, and you can't find men like we have. Someone who's willing to take you under their wing and start depositing life into you, deposit wisdom, and just different things that will help you grow. And I'm just thinking like that inheritance of value, something you just can't put a price on. And just when I was thinking about his sermon, that's what came to mind, is like being able to see it as priceless and be able to run with it and take it and hold on to it. So that was just a thought.
No, totally. That's the spirit of this age I'm feeling.
Yeah,
I'm feeling reluctant, kind of like, you're old, I know how to use Instagram, so don't give me any grief, don't give me any advice. You know what I mean?
Well, so that's what makes somebody a good man, is that they can actually receive something from another man.
Right.
So it's really a two-way street, because if you think you know everything and somebody's trying to help you and you just turn the switch off, then it really shows where you are,
Yeah, totally. Good. So anyway, Ayuba Sharif, running with the wind, right? The tailwind and the headwind of the plane. You can either fight against it. So I guess it was what the Spirit of God is doing in your
Holy
life.
Spirit,
And I can same kind of thing. I can kind of really understand because his hardcore accent, but like towards the end there, he was just like preaching it.
Yeah.
Like he was thumping with fire. Like yes. I know what you were saying, but yeah, dude, yes. Oh yeah, that was one of the ones that have been good.
I'll probably be the one I start off with when I start listening to them over.
Yeah, yeah. So it's you can hear him a little better. You can also play him back on YouTube like half speed. But he's I respect those guys out there, man, tearing it up, third world nations and stuff, and it's good to see them on the conference docket, representing.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I think it's real good. And then was Marty Carnegie, of course, the shift, right? Always delivers a good word at conference. Now for me, this was my good sermon, was Fred Ruby's sermon, on courage.
Yeah.
On courage and stuff. That's always, it's not like some people are afraid to go out on the road, they're afraid to leave the house. People are afraid for me to take their temperature to go to the church. Okay? But he kind of more focused around the Gideon. Gideon was like, he was hiding already. He's kind of in the threshing floor. He came back, and then God was telling him, God called him mighty man of valor. And here he is, kind of like trying to stay out of the conflict and all that stuff. So is that guy Saul?
Shirking responsibility.
Shirking, yeah. Saul shirking. What was the third example? It was Gideon, Saul, and Barak.
Yeah.
Barak from Judges, right? Barak. And he was, I'll go if Mama goes, right? That kind of thing. So yeah, that's always kind of like that challenged me.
Right.
I have nice guy syndrome, I'm always like, well, I could step up and cause this conflict, or if I want to die on this battlefield, I know it's all going to sort itself out, or I'll be kind of like, this person's personality is so messed up, he's going to blow himself up and then I'm going to have to deal with him. So that's how I've been dealt with people at work sometimes. So for me, I had to realize that, something you might tell someone could help them too, and they won't blow up. They won't cut their own throat, won't drive off an edge. So it's been a challenge for me in church, because I think that kind of shows that you care about people, But he said, like, the only people that like conflict are drunk people and drunk people.
Yeah.
I said, that's true. I don't think no one likes it. Not you like it.
Right.
Actually, you develop the courage to have these confrontations with different things. So
I did that. I was drunk and angry for a long time.
Glad you're not.
Yeah.
We're glad you're not. Yeah, but, so that's always a big challenge with discipling people, being a leader and stuff. And I think I was kind of passive aggressive like that a lot in ministry too, when people come with crazy problems. I can think of one good time that I inserted myself into someone's marriage. And you're being an idiot. And I was like, hey, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Your wife told me this. Your wife told me that. I think one time that guy came back and thanked me, a year later. He just said, hey, thanks. What? Just thanks, And he's like, he walked in. He's still in church today. But I can remember that was one time that I felt like Pastor Struts. I'm gonna go deal with the man, so. It took a lot. It took me a fight against every instinct, every nice guy instinct that I have was to go confront that guy, and so it helped people. So that's why it kind of brought it back to me. Is like, you still need to hammer on this nail until it's all the way in there. The rest of your life you're gonna have to hammer on this nail. And I dealt with my kids. Like, I gotta not be afraid. Your kids just aren't gonna get better on their own. They need dad. They need dad's input. So really, that sermon of all of them just challenged me. I've heard discipleship sermons a lot. I already believe in the shifting and tweaking and all that stuff. That's not a problem for me. I understand I'm a citizen of heaven, and then what comes through here is it's just temporary. I'm going to heaven, but I'm not in a hurry. I understand most of these things, but when you hear a sermon like, to me, you hear a sermon like that, it's like, it connects. That one connected with me real good. What I think I really needed to hear, though, was Pastor Warner's Friday night sermon.
Yeah.
That's I don't know about you
Those
guys.
are probably the courage, and then the OD was probably.
Yeah, those are passions. To me, that was just like, that was all the questions I had past 5 years. What's going to happen when Pastor Mitchell has to step down, or if he passes on, or what's going to happen and all this stuff. there's just this weighing on my mind. You know, what do I give myself to? Because if this fellowship is only as stable as Pastor Mitchell's life, then what's going to happen? You know, we're really riding on stuff.
Yes, I had the privilege of going to the San Antonio conference 2 years ago, and so I'd never been, and so I remember thinking, I've got to know some of these guys. Right? I could say 28 years, whatever. And I was amazed at how many people I didn't know. I mean, I recognized a lot of faces, and there's probably a handful of people that I actually knew. And most of them were DIs, you know. And so I was sitting there, and Pastor Greg was one of the featured speakers, and he preached a sermon on basically the fellowship history, and he kind of took things down from how it started. And then I from my perspective, because I've been to the Prescott conference, you know, I'm not the end all in this particular thing, but I can say that if you've been to Prescott any length of time and, you know, seen the fellowship in a greater scope, you might have a better understanding. But seeing him preach in a church which is a third generation church, you know, preaching to fourth and fifth generation pastors, you know, a sermon on the history. I thought, you know what, this makes a lot of sense, because there are some guys 4 or 5 generations down, you know, from Pastor Mitchell, that they've probably never been to Prescott conference. Maybe they've heard the sermons, or you know, but they you know, there's something about being in an atmosphere like that. So I thought this is very well put, because it's kind of bridging the gap, so to speak. And so when Pastor, you know, that's why I like Pastor Warner's sermon. One is it was personal as far as local, but also as the big scope thing. I could see that coming down the road. And it was just very, you know, very confirming to me. Again, I said, man, this is awesome. And so I would encourage, you know, younger pastors to go to Prescott conferences as well, at least once a year if they can. I understand that it's difficult, but, you know, once, because it'll give them a bigger picture, you know. And once you have a bigger picture, you have a bigger, you know, idea of what we really, you know, some people, they only make rallies, you know. You're seeing a very small slice, you know. And so, but yeah, it's very good. So,
Talked about maybe it was I don't know if Pastor Warner said or Pastor Strutt said. So Greg's basically been pastoring Prescott Church for like 7 years.
yeah, that's one said that.
Okay, so that's basically.
Pastor said that also. They both said it on different occasions.
Yeah, he's basically been running the show.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
So that's what the sermon, he was talking about the seamless transition.
I know there was another you know, fellowship in Southern California that you know, the father was going to retire, and they handed it over to the son, and it did kind of like it kind of blew him apart a little bit, kind of broke him up a little bit. The son wasn't. It was like all of a sudden now he's like now he's the leader, you know. And so if you get like a Gen Xer, what's Greg, like almost 50? He's like 50 now?
He's like my age.
He's like 50. So you get like a guy, and these guys who are like 70, 65 years old, 70 years old, been pastoring for decades. And then you're going to have the younger guy come in, start calling the shots, and they didn't receive it. Because they say he's not seasoned or whatever. So it was like a sudden thing. You remember Damon? Damon, he told me, he says, you know, there's like one day they just came in and he said, God told me that my son's supposed to take over. And that was it. I was like,
and so he probably never served or ministered.
That's what I gathered. I gathered that he wasn't like if you go from a guy, you know, manly man, older gentleman, to a guy with, you know, soul patch and skinny jeans, and then you get the new wave for the. I don't think people didn't receive it. I don't know if that's what he looks like. But that to me, when they were telling me the story, it seemed like it was kind of like going from.
What a seamless transition.
Yeah. Whatever's
bumpy road.
from baby boomer to Gen Z right away. It didn't all over, but I remember he brought when Greg came back from overseas. He was in South Africa forever, right?
Yeah.
He came back and immediately he was kind of just put up there and preaching conferences and stuff, and people were watching. And I think about 3 years in, someone just came up to me. I was talking to some other pastor, Prescott guy. He's like, I think he's really grooming Greg to take over the fellowship. And that's how he put it.
Yeah.
He didn't say like, that kid's gonna take over and then we're gonna be sunk. But you listen to Greg's preaching, it's just really, he's dialed in.
I heard a sermon from him years ago when they did a discipleship class in India.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember there, he preached a sermon that really, I can remember what it was, Amalek, about the flesh.
Yeah, for a while, these men's discipleship classes, people were preaching on these inherited curses and all these deep, hardcore, you got to pray fast forever to get delivered, blah, blah. And then Greg came in, he just got up there and he preached on the bow, the archer. And he talked about how, God's just stretching you, preparing you, and when you find the skeletons of these guys, their backs are curved weird, and their right arm is tweaked out because their whole life is just, and just talked about just like a manly discipleship sermon, you know what I mean? I was like, I remember like smacking my kid in the shoulders, and that's a men's discipleship class right there. Talks about weaponry and warfare and all this stuff and preparation for that and learning how to string the bow and everything. I think he even mentioned the Odyssey and Penelope and Odysseus, and I was like, So that's but I really like in every conference there's one that like usually the pastor and me need to hear, and then one that the paramedic needs to hear. That's just kind of I think it was Paul Campbell preached one time on something that my paramedic side needed to hear, and then Pastor I think it was Warner talked about some stuff that I needed to hear for the pastoring side. God always provides something.
I was thinking about the last, I don't know how many, 4 or 5 Prescott conference that I've been to, and when they would, all the pastors and all the older pastors were praying for their pastor. They said, like, let's pray for our pastor. And Pastor Greg would come up, and how they put themselves under his leadership, even at that point, and to pray for him, and that there wasn't like some, that they're willing to put themselves on him. It always that really stood out to me. Every conference I would see that.
Well, because you could see that he values the inheritance. He values it. It's not something taken lightly. So
Exactly. He values what it.
Right, not gonna sell porn.
Well, and I know he would always refer to his dad as Pastor Mitchell too.
Right.
He would say, "Well, my father says this, and Dad." You guys call him Pastor Mitchell. Pastor Mitchell. Okay, so he's a disciple. He's also a leader. That was just he's pretty down to earth. You talk to him about stuff. And he's patient. He's very patient too. I can tell. So what about the announcements? We got some people coming in Southern California. Got Victorville's going to get another church, right? It's been a while since there's been a Victorville church. I think they tried before from Barstow, right?
yeah.
They had a guy in there from Barstow. Victorville hasn't clicked yet. Pretty much.
Well, we had something going there years ago, but that guy flaked out.
You went off with Brownsville stuff, right? So we haven't had a real partner, I guess you could say, in Victorville for a while. So it's good that Lighthouser's going to go in there.
Yeah, because they got the other lighthouse right there in Inspirational.
Right. That's where he's from, right?
Mhm.
He's going from Hesperia. That's good.
10 minutes on the road.
Yeah, we have a church planning center up in there, don't you think? Would be good. Is there still Apple Valley?
Yeah, that's under Lighthouse.
Okay. Lighthouse guy there?
Yeah.
Steve Fernandez.
Okay. Yeah, High Desert needs to get a little church planning center up in there, you know what I'm saying?
I wasn't sure if anyone was even going to come to California. I was like, wow, who's going to come to California? Is it anybody? There's 3 now.
Yeah, so there's Inglewood. Inglewood. Where exactly is that?
So all the Lakers.
Lake?
And the Rams.
The farms.
Inglewood Rams. Forum. Is it a big city kind of place? Or
It's
is
a
it
small
just
city.
a
Actually, it's not. I remember going there when Lincoln Shepherd was there, and they're like, "Be careful because the streets are." I don't roll. I pass through San Diego. It's worse. So it's a pretty nice area. You know, it has its rough spots, I'm sure, but the cost of living is the thing that it's going to be the eye opener for them when they get there.
Yeah. I'm going to come to California and get that eye opening.
I get it every month.
I forget who's coming. I forget his name. He's married to I believe James Wilkins' daughter. Yeah.
James Wilkins' daughter?
Yeah. What's his name?
I don't know. It's posted up in the back of the church, folks.
Yeah, I talked to him on the way out on Friday night.
Yeah?
Yeah, I told him to give him a call.
Okay, James Wilkins' daughter. Okay. So that'd be cool. We got Inglewood now. LA area still needs to get hammered a little bit.
There's a lot more.
Yeah, I bet. But then the other one's Gardena is just a changeover, right? But are they also from Tucson?
No, I think he was in the church, right?
He was in the church.
Years.
Oh, it's a kind of an indigenous takeover. Okay. So they've been in church for a while. So that's good. Bruce Callahan's going back to Australia. That was.
When did he actually come from Australia? I don't know.
It was a while
Back
back.
in the 90s. I had
So
my
late
first-
90s?
Yeah, I took him actually to Spy Outland there about
Oh, okay.
way back when.
He came preach the revival for us. He was evangelizing in Tucson first.
She asked me, "Can you take me down to the beach?" I said, "All right." So we went down there.
90?
The next year,
Late
he's like,
90s?
"They ain't going there."
I don't know.
So I thought I think I remember a revival with him. I didn't get there until '96 though.
I'm not sure when he preached for us. He was always singing, right? Like he would be
Yeah.
preaching and he'd just do a
Right.
song.
Yeah.
Like just to prove his point. I said, it's kind of like a really happy guy. Boston accent. So, that's about the, so I mean, everything else is international, right? The only stateside church planting is in California. The international, gosh, what was it? Canada. Canada's international. When I think about Canada as the
What was it? Guinea?
Guinea-Bissau. Guinea-Bissau. I forget.
Radio for
Oh, that was
Sierra Leone.
Shift.
That'd be cool.
The shift.
Is it a radio station or radio communication?
Radio communication.
But they said there's going to be like a radio station.
Yeah.
They're going to have 24 hours, or
Yeah.
right? So that's good.
Yeah, go over there in the radio station.
Basta Garcia from California.
From California. Oh, pasta. It's sweet.
I'll be ready.
Just right on, man. All right, so looking forward. Next year, are we going to be open for conference? You won't be making the pilgrimage?
Yep. Yeah, hopefully the building.
Yeah, at least it kind of gives them time to build that thing up. That was the whole conference. So. Okay, so Anthony, you were our spy we sent over there to see what's really going on over in Tucson. So.
I can't say.
Did you see any building stuff going on over there?
They haven't broke ground yet.
They haven't broke ground yet?
No,
Are they going to try and do it all at once? They have a bunch of material sitting around? It just looks like normal.
They're hiding it.
They're hiding it.
Hiding
Is it going to be like episode 9? It's going to be under the ground.
it.
New church building.
that was pretty cool with Pastor Ruby saying how they had that material, all this material out there for like what, a year and a half.
15 months. No one stole it.
Praise God, divine protection.
Yeah, my iPad got stolen over there. North San Antonio.
Your what?
My iPad, my glasses, and
You should put it behind the fence.
It wasn't there.
It
It wasn't there.
It's a safeguard now. We gotta
Yeah.
just send stuff to Pastor Rudy for safekeeping. That's right. Is there any other thoughts, concerns, or anything like that, guys? Any insights? I can't think of none. Okay. Well, we'll just call it there. I think we maximize kind of what we have inside of our brains right now. And my energy drink is starting to run out. So, quick, anybody in the chat? You have anything you want to say? Any questions? Yeah, guys, don't feed the trolls either.
20 years.
Mhm.
Where's the fellowship? 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, something easy question like that. That's what we gotta do. So,
Raptured? I remember we had an evangelist come in. He was like, I see. I believe the rapture is going to happen in 5 years. He didn't say exactly time, date, or anything. But just, he believes.
At our church, you said that?
No, at ours.
How long has it been?
In Riverside. It was been a year. I think it was last year. So 4 more years ago.
Ron says he spoke to Pastor Garrett. They're still finishing up 90% DWGS. What's that mean? Construction guy. Dogs. And still making some value-added decisions. So Ron's the construction guy, so we'll
Yeah,
just
he's
go with
the
what
one
he
seen
said.
it.
Yeah.
We'll let Ron be
There's the answer.
Ron will give us constant updates on that, but that would be great next year to go to just have it in the new building.
Yeah,
It's like
they're
a
saying
victory
it's
lap.
going to be ready.
Victory lap after the COVID.
When the rescue building went up pretty quick after.
Drawings.
Yeah, very
That
good. Well,
was-
the
yeah.
buildings usually do.
Yeah. Because I was there in the winter and they were really putting up the beams and it was already ready for the summer conference.
Yeah, they gotta get those Boy Scout people to do it. It's like tribal rock, man. Everybody's do something big. So yeah, so they're doing drawings is what it is. 90% of the drawings are just to make some decisions on what they're gonna do with this, that, and the other thing. That's good.
I wonder if they're going to connect it to the existing building.
They're probably gonna do children's church in the existing.
Yeah.
Like, so it'll probably be connected like Prescott is. You know, they connected it with the
They
whole
just connected it.
Yeah, because there was something with if it was separate, then it was like a hall that they had to rent out or something like that. And so I think they connected it.
Zoning and coding weirdness.
Yeah, coding.
Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff that I don't like to think about. But so that's good. Thank you very much, Pastor Garcia, for taking time out of your
Thank you.
studying schedule.
Thank you.
3 sermons a week
Come
all of a
out
sudden.
and fellowship.
Going from being a guy in the church to preaching 3 times a week. I know it's a challenge to do that.
Nah.
Thank
This is
you.
Walden Revelation.
Oh yes, really man.
I just call him Mike and Brother Tony. Hey, you guys got a sermon.
So, and of course, Mike and Tony, appreciate you guys as usual for your contributions to this podcast. Let me lose my voice too. Thank you everyone out here showing up. We even had we actually had a Jesus Christ show up, icon and everything. Yeah. Check out the chat when you go home. It's fancy. So I instantly went and made Ron a moderator. I think Ron handled business because there's no more Jesus in our chat. So anyway, so thanks everyone for showing up. Checking out. This is the ministry of the Door Christian Fellowship in Colton. Next week we have another special guest. In a couple weeks I'm going to have Gabe Ruby here from Tucson, Vision Unlimited leader. And if you know anybody who is a pastor or influential member, your church, fellowship, doing anything, give me a call. We'll try and set them up. And yes, Michael, thank you very much. Happy Father's Day to everybody from Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
So just let us know, and we'll try and get him on the show. We have a lot of openings. I actually have a calendar here. I went by a calendar, just like when you're a pastor and you go to a conference. You can try to schedule people, so we're going to try and do that. And thanks everybody for showing up. Bye chat. Bye everybody. We're going to lead out with some music. See you later.